Jennifer's Body, a 2009 film that I used to once say was going to definitely become a cult classic. Now, there used to be these forums called Haunting Echoes, and I'm not sure if they're still around, but honestly, I don't even want to try and check on that, because I used to post massive amounts of cringe from my 14-year-old fledgling goth wannabe mind. But, like I said, one of the only posts on there that I actually remember making is about Jennifer's Body. And I'd kind of like to talk about that today. Though my prediction did come to pass, and side note, I totally said around the same time, but on a different forum, that Megan would be perfect to play April O'Neil in the next TMNT live-action movie. And you guys gotta understand, the last TMNT movie that had come out was the 2007 CG movie, and nobody thought there was going to be a live-action one after that. And it was, so up in the air, and people were floating around so many different ideas. But I said Megan, and guess who was right? Yeah, it was me. The points I raised in the post... Whoa. Okay. Raised in the post are slightly different than what has actually happened, though. So I thought I'd make a new list here on YouTube where all the current cringe content goes, right? And it can stay up forever now, so I won't have to lose it again. At the time, I was a huge fan of Megan Fox, and I watched pretty much anything that she was in. I was a stan before the term stan even really existed, and to this day I couldn't tell you exactly what it was that drew me to her in the first place. Maybe it was her acting style, and if I'm honest, it was her beauty too. Both of them had this old Hollywood sort of glamour to me, almost as if she'd stepped off some kind of publicity shot. And being a 15-year-old who had ambitions of acting, I was equally caught up in both of those things. Oddly enough, though my room and locker were both decorated with provocative, sexualized images of her, I never really looked at her in a sexual light. That might sound like I'm simping, but I promise I'm not. To me, she was like looking at a modern Aphrodite, this enigmatic, almost unreachable quality emanated from the pictures. But thanks to the way celebrity works, I soon knew her. Or, at least I thought I had an idea of who she was through interviews. And the image of a real person replaced the goddess. Megan herself has said that Jennifer's Body was a great symbolic representation of what was going on in her personal and professional life at the time. As someone who was a fan of hers during this time when she was mocked and dismissed, frequently in the kinds of alternative circles that I used to run around in, but at the same time in the mainstream, I'd also like to tell about the experience I had trying to convince people that this movie was good, all the way back then. And, now it's going through a cultural reevaluation. And then for anyone wondering, yes, I am being a hipster about Megan Fox stanship. Everybody can appreciate talent, but, I appreciated her first. No, I'm kidding. You guys should all go reappreciate her. Really, go back and watch some of the movies she was in. She's great. She was great as April. And that's enough of that rambling. Let's get on with it. I've been trying to gather my thoughts on this as best as I can, and despite what I said earlier, I even did go try and find that post that I was talking about, but it looks like it's been lost to internet history. Let's start with the first time I saw this movie, though, by sneaking into it because in 2009 I was not old enough to get in by myself. I remember seeing this movie on a Sunday by buying a ticket for another movie and being particularly surprised by the amount of old people to see it in next to me. It was a Sunday, though, so I guess I should have expected that. The first time I watched Jennifer's Body, I was instantly convinced that this was going to be the piece. This was going to be the movie that could show the world Megan Fox could act, and she'd start getting roles that she could really sink her teeth into, like Jennifer. And in fact, I might have even gone back and made the post I'm talking about the same night. Actually, though, I didn't, because that was before we had internet at my house, so I was still going to the library to use it, and the library was definitely closed by the time I got out of the movie. But, I was surprisingly wrong. The few people I showed the movie to said that it was bad and laughed at it, and, I had laughed at it too, but because I thought the writing was funny and witty and smart. For a while, I did support the movie. Bought the soundtrack twice and the movie itself twice. When I worked at Target around Halloween, there were these alternate horror movies, and Jennifer's Body was one of them. Jennifer's Body should really feel great about that, because one of the other ones they had was Carrie, and that's like my OG favorite horror movie. But okay, anyway, so point one is
I broke your jaw once before. I spilled your blood upon the floor. You broke my leg in return. So let's sit back and watch the bed burn. Blood sticks, sweat drips. Break the lock if it don't fit. A kick in the teeth is good for some. A kiss with a fist is better than none.
I could go into a lot of random facts about how the first recorded instance of the word was from Plautus, this Greek guy who wrote stuff. But really, though, instead of pulling in classical Greek and Shakespeare, I'll give it to you guys straight and just say tragic comedy boils down to something with both tragic and comedic elements. It's pretty much self-explanatory. The film has the same kind of vibe to me as similar classics like The Evil Dead or The Lost Boys. Jennifer's body, like those films, combines both genuine terror. The scene of Jennifer and Needy in the kitchen still sends chills up and down my spine just thinking about it. And comedy. The best line, of course, being,
You were such a player hater.
You're a jerk. Wow, nice insult, Hannah Montana. You got any more harsh digs?
this was really the only part of my predictions that came true, at least as written. But that's kind of a given, as good films will be recognized as such eventually, even if it is 10 years after the fact. Point one was my shortest point, and I only had 3 in the post, so I thought point one in this new list should also be the shortest one. That's what we're going to go with. But my second point is,
I broke your jaw once before. I spilled your blood upon the floor. You broke my leg in return. So let's sit back and watch the bed burn. Blood sticks, sweat drips. Break the lock if it don't fit. A kick in the teeth is good for some. A kiss with a fist is better than none.
spoilers ahead in case you haven't seen this, and I don't even usually do these, but you really should go see this movie. If you're not familiar with it, I don't know why you're watching this video, but whatever, do you. But we're eventually told that Jennifer, after leaving the fire at the bar with the band Low Shoulder, which was an indie band that she had dragged Amanda Seyfried's Needy to go see, was kidnapped and given in a botched attempt at a virgin sacrifice. Because Jennifer had lied about being a virgin, she ends up completely possessed by a demon. Unlike a typical horror movie, though, I feel like we're maybe supposed to mourn Jennifer despite her status as the killer. Her apparent bad actions in the past and mean girl attitude before the sacrifice ultimately mean nothing because the murders and all of the chaos that surround that are ultimately not really in her control. Needy's first action after her escape from a mental hospital is to go after the now successful band for their murder of her friend and return the favor. If she had truly thought Jennifer was to blame, would she have done this? I think the title of the film's meaning becomes clear when you view it through this lens. Maybe it's a basic thing of me to iterate, but here it is. Jennifer is gone and only her body remains. Much like Megan Fox herself, who had her own sort of botched sacrifice at the Hollywood altar, Jennifer's individuality fades away, and she becomes the ultimate femme fatale. A demonic apotheosis of the very tropes and biases that permeated throughout Megan's career and what used to be the mainstream opinion of who she was. Now, back in the day, it was popular to call Megan a Marilyn wannabe, which has always rubbed me particularly in a weird way. Because while the press and general public derided Megan for her supposed imitation of Marilyn, they were treating her exactly the same way Monroe herself had once been treated by the press. At once, they hailed her as a sex goddess, perhaps a different, more worldly view of the modern Aphrodite I saw, and tore her down for her shallowness and her vanity, purely because of the role she was typecast in. Oh, it's a bit of a Freudian slip, but yeah, typecast in. This was no different to the way that Marilyn was constantly referred to as a dumb blonde because of the roles she played in films, and, like Megan would be after her, was mocked for trying to take her career more seriously. But back to the movie, though, I think that this meta-narrative that I've described, the one Megan herself has said was what she had in mind during filming, that the character of Jennifer represented her relationship with Hollywood at the time, being recognized as one of the biggest reasons that the film is enduring its current cult status. It's a message I think a lot of people can get behind and relate to in some way. And on that note,
I broke your jaw once before. I spilled your blood upon the floor. You broke my leg in return. So let's sit back and watch the bed burn. Blood sticks, sweat drips.
was sort of the target demographic for this movie. Diablo Cody has gone on record saying that she wrote this with girls in mind. However, there's a message here that I think anyone can relate to, and that's that living up to the reputations given or forced to you by others can be destructive. Jennifer has an arguably positive reputation in the school. Popular, good-looking, and desired. No matter how positive the reputation, however, there's always a darker side. She's scandalous and flighty, considered easy to get into bed. One might think that Jennifer leans into this, but we don't see her do so overtly until after her possession. It's frustrating to have an image of who you are put upon you, especially if it's one many people see. And though this unfortunately continues outside of high school, within the setting of the film, this is the microcosm through which we can view this lesson. The choice of living up to one's reputation could be conscious or subconscious, forced or willingly done, and sometimes, like in high school, you don't have to do anything for the reputation in someone's head to be made permanent. This can sometimes lead to disproportionate retribution, exemplified by Jennifer's line here.
How can you say that? You're killing people. No, I'm killing boys.
She, driven by the demonic persona forced upon her, turns her hellish fury on any and every boy she can get her hands on and teeth into. Needy is the other side of the same coin. A picture-perfect good girl whose mousy continence leads to a reputation much more negative than Jennifer's as a prude and a hanger-on, only given value by the friends she keeps. While Jennifer's reputation becomes all-consuming, literally, Needy sheds hers throughout the course of the story, becoming a completely different person by the end of the film when she sits in the asylum, even taking on aspects of Jennifer's persona, metaphorically represented by the power she manifests, and exacting revenge for the ruination of both her life and that of her best friends. There's a quote from Fox herself that I find intriguing when looking at this movie. Megan is quoted as saying, "I felt like I was able to make fun of my own image as to how some people might perceive Megan Fox to be." Jennifer's body tells us many stories. The tragic tale of a girl sacrificed upon the altar of personal advancement. The horror of friendships, reputation, and demonic possession. But the message at the end is clear. It's the destruction of one's image that leads to self-actualization. I'd love to revisit this someday and get the chance to go over the more horror-y, fun aspects of it, rather than what I just did now. But I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Goddamn, I love paper like a Michael Scott. I can do things that your man cannot. Slab boy coming down, I'm hot. Everybody say that I gotta be stopped, even though my